Well, hi everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us for our first episode of our Hackworth Fellowship Campus Ethics Team podcast.
Sense of belonging.
Yeah, we're super excited. Have a lot of amazing
people, stories,
Yeah.
experiences we want to share with you.
Yeah, and so we just wanted this first episode to kind of be like an introduction. Why do we want to do this project? Where we're coming from, our SU experiences, our college experiences. So yeah, just to kind of set the stage for everyone. So
Yeah, and then in the future we'll be bringing in different students to talk about their experience at Santa Clara and their sense of belonging, different teachers who have had experience like studying these issues, sociologists, and just people from all different backgrounds to really try to understand like what is it that makes someone feel like they belong somewhere, which is very close, near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah.
And I feel like actually we haven't really been able to talk to each other about why we care so much about this.
No, that's so true. I guess we can start like little intros. So for me personally, hey, my name is Hydeia. I'm currently a junior at Santa Clara University, majoring in psychology and public health and minoring in religious studies and political science. And yeah, I guess like personally why this is like near and dear to my heart. I think I had a very like unique experience coming into SU and felt like I belonged in the sense of coming in, it was like COVID time. So our orientation was online. And I think that really brought a nice sense of community because typically when I was watching like college orientation videos on like YouTube, it was like big day, like everyone's like on campus and everything like that. And then being online, it was kind of interesting because I don't know, it was you got to learn about like the kind of niche things people like because it wasn't just all academic things, like different like games and you know different interest sessions. So I think
a different point in time.
Exactly. So it was like nice as you don't just know people who you live with or just like on an academic basis, but kind of learning about people, their interests and things like that. So I think that helped to belong because I was like, oh, these people have similar interests as I do, but then kind of coming back to that on campus. And yeah, I feel like it's one of those things I see like on TikToks all the time, like freshman year friend groups like never last or things like that. And I feel like just the learning and growing, like I did my freshman year and seeing like the friends I surround myself now versus like who I surrounded myself my first year, it's like so different and kind of like that growth and like finding your community. So
yeah,
a little spiel.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably talk about my experience at Santa Clara for hours because I mean, it was like I'm a senior now. I'm Kendall, philosophy major and entrepreneurship minor. But my journey, like the past 4 years, it's very difficult to put it into, I think, a few words. But similarly, COVID was probably like the initial starter of like my like experience with like, I guess, a lack of a sense of belonging in a sense where I started my freshman year, it was 2020. And all I knew is that I wanted to leave home like as soon as possible. And I wanted to start college. But our entire freshman year was online. Yeah. So I was able to get an apartment in Santa Clara. Oh, no way. Even though dorms weren't open. And I like found like 3 random girls on Instagram. We ended up like just finding an apartment off campus. And it was crazy because at that time there was probably around like 200 other freshmen who had done the same thing and wanted to leave like their home so badly and were in a situation where they could get an apartment off campus and like live there for their like freshman year. Which was wild. But I think the part that made that really difficult was the first, I'd say, 8 months of my college experience. I only had 200 people and no campus life, no clubs, nothing. I only had these 200 people, which ended up being predominantly people who belonged in Greek life. So these people became my friends like very quickly because that's what was going on. And to be honest with you, like the only thing that was happening like around campus was stuff with Greek life. Like that was the only thing that existed throughout the pandemic.
Yeah.
And
that's so interesting, actually.
Yeah, no, it was really crazy. And I did not, for context, I never joined a Greek life organization. Like I'm a very social person, but I felt like because of that, I didn't really want to like just become a part of one group. And it was all online. So it was like, okay, like
spending money, you're not getting
it doesn't really make sense. But so after like a year of that, like people started to come on campus and like campus started to like come alive again. But I had my friends. Yeah. So like I was like, oh, I don't have any like incentive or reason to like try other things or like join other groups or like at least it was a lot more difficult because I already had these like set group of people like, and I was like, okay, these are my college people. These are gonna be the friends for the rest of my life. I'm so lucky that I met them, like whatnot. And that ended up, I guess, short story, like just bursting into flames. And my like by the middle of my sophomore year, I essentially was forced into like completely restarting my life over at Santa Clara and like really had a moment where I was like, I'm gonna have to leave this place, like, and start somewhere else.
But were you living in that same apartment? Like,
no, I was actually living on campus at that time, but with those people in Sobrato, like the whatever they're called,
like little apartment suites.
So like the dorm interaction. It wasn't like you were living in Swig or something, which I think is something that does like really help people like meet different types of people and stuff. And I just literally had like probably like 5 girls who like replicate like same things, like same backgrounds, like absolutely no like diversity whatsoever. Good friends at the time, but like ended up just not working out. And then I basically had to decide whether I was going to leave Santa Clara or like start over, start fresh, like leave that like entire group totally behind and like figure out like who I was. And like be like, okay, you like music, like join the radio station. You like tennis, join club tennis. Like you like ethics, join like, like figuring out like, okay, who am I? Like what do I need to do to feel like I belong like in this place, like to stay here and like be happy. And like now fast forward 2 years, like I'm very happy and I'm so happy I stayed. And I've made like, it makes me emotional, genuinely, like made some of the most amazing connections of my entire life. But it was a lot on me. And I think that's why when I was like thinking about my Hackworth fellowship and like what I wanted to do and like what I thought like the biggest issue kind of like on campus was that like if you want to feel a sense of belonging, like it's all on you. And like I just don't think everyone's in a position to be able to put that much effort in to just simply feel like they like are seen and like they belong. And so I was like, all right, I want to figure this out. Like, what can I do as a person to like make sure people don't have to do what I did? Like even though I'm very happy I had to do that and it made me like a great, much better person who I love, like I just don't think like you should have to go through like turmoil to like just feel like okay.
Exactly.
And
that's so real. I feel like especially that kind of starting over piece is like so scary because I definitely like relate to that because coming in, especially like that orientation piece, I was like, okay, the people that I met, like this like 10-15 person friend group, these are going to be like my friends for the rest of like my life. And then once like our interests started to like diverge, and I was like, wait, oh my gosh, we're totally like separate people. Like, we might have like little commonalities here and there, but I think that's oftentimes like a misconception. And then it also makes me think about like transfer students and things like that. Like you're starting over, like you might come from like a community college, you might have came from like another 4-year institution, and like how do you develop that sense of belonging? Because it's super scary to feel like you're reliving that like first year kind of like anxiety and feelings like all over again. And then like you have less time. Like I feel like your first year, you're just kind of trying things out. Like, okay, I'm gonna be friends with these people. Okay, there's people on my floor. There's people who are like, you know, I'm in this club or things like that. But then if it's like you're leaving like a friend group or something, or you're transferring in and you don't know anyone, like it is much harder on you to like seek out those opportunities and not feel like, okay, I'm just gonna be alone. Like I don't care to like seek anything out. Because I feel like there is an emphasis on that first year experience and finding your forever friends that first year. And I feel like the movies, like it's like, oh my gosh, the people I meet on moving day are gonna be my best friends. And it's like, it works out for people sometimes that way, but like oftentimes it doesn't work out that way, which is like so scary. And I feel like you're kind of in this like, I don't know, it's a little bit of a gray area to be like, oh my gosh, am I like doing college right? Then you don't want to have FOMO. Then you see people, you know, all your friends who are off like from high school, you know, living their
lives on Instagram.
Exactly. Which is like, I don't know, comparison's definitely like the thief of joy. Like first year, you're like, oh my gosh, everybody has like this kind of life, or like, you know, I don't know. It's just like very interesting to see like how people like end up finding like their space. And oftentimes there's people who like just go to college and be like, yeah, I just came for academics and went home and like never found that space, and like are like who's kind of like responsible for that. Like, yeah, you know, you gotta attend club meetings, you know, that's like on you if you're like, okay, I have time in my schedule or things like that. But should schools have more of like an emphasis of like, okay, let's make sure, you know, everyone like feels like they belong. Like what measures are kind of like in place to make sure students are like happy here, you know?
And I don't know, as we were just like talking about all that, I had so many different thoughts, and I felt like a lot of this like idea of feeling like you belong is like within your own head, like this fear, like to like put yourself out there to like, you know, join a club like when you're like a junior or something in college, like, and you see them and you're like, oh, like all these people have been doing this like since they were like freshmen, they're all so close, like they're not going to be welcoming, which like in some cases I think that is true. Like people, like even if it's subconsciously, when you have been a part of like a group for a long time, it is difficult to like you know, be attentive to a person who's joining for like the first time. But I feel like the majority of time, a lot of those situations, like people are just excited that another person shares the same interests as them. And like it's like more in your own mind where it's like, I'm too scared to like for them to perceive me like as like this weird outsider, like type of thing. And that made me think like, I think a lot of a sense of belonging comes from feeling like you belong like with yourself. Like I think a lot of it is like genuinely just feeling like okay with who you are and like not worried about like the perceptions of other people around you and like what they think of who you are. More just being like and kind of seeing where that takes you. And like letting the wind flow. And I feel like the combination of having like resources for helping people to join things to make them feel like they belong, but also resources to make them like feel like they belong within themselves. It's just like something that's so necessary like at this point in time, like with COVID, like with social media, like that's a large part of the reason we're also in our heads and like have this scary like perception like, oh, this other person like isn't gonna like me, like they're different from me, like or like I'm like to this, I'm to that, like it's gonna like scare them away or something. At least from my experience, I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but at least from my experience, like we need to like there's a call for like something like more, because I just feel our generation like slowly like separating from each other, like, and these like connect, like it's just so much harder to have like a genuine conversation with someone you don't know nowadays without that like fear like behind you, like because you want to feel like you belong, but you don't want to like it's like it's so scary to be yourself, to like let yourself belong somewhere as well. Like
no, that's so true. And I think about like what you're saying regarding like knowing yourself and kind of like, feeling like you belong like within yourself. And I feel like the biggest thing is like in order to like love yourself and be your like truest self, you really have to like know yourself. And I think like a lot of times, when you're younger, there are like movies and like there's just different forms of media of like what the college experience will be. And I think it will be like so healthy for like people like everywhere, like before they start college, like the summer before, like write down like what would their like dream college experience like look like even if it's looking like a club directing, what are all the clubs like you'd want to like be a part of, because I think there's oftentimes like a misconception, and I guess like a little bit of like that you feel bad kind of feel like you join something, you're like, okay, actually I don't like it, I'm gonna leave. But I feel like it's always like better to try a bunch of things, like even if you becomes like an involvement fair, or like other schools have like club fairs, and you sign up for 50 clubs and then you go to like all 50 like intro meetings, and then you're like, wait, I only like 3 clubs, like stick with those 3 that you like. It's never like too late to like try something. And then just to see, and like even if it's things you're on the fence about, like still try it, because you never know, like, oh my gosh, this is what will make my college experience, because
totally
a lot of times too, I think like it's interesting how you said like during the COVID time, like a lot of like the what was considered like campus life was like Greek life, and that was like what was happening. And I think like that's one thing I feel people don't always know if they're gonna like be a part of, and that a lot of times a bigger school,
a lot of people like don't want to be a part of it, but they feel like they have to.
Exactly. And then I feel like a lot of times, especially like I feel like the biggest like misconception or like, I don't know, convoluted thought about Greek life is like, oh, you're just paying money for friends kind of thing. And then I feel like, when people are in it, there's people that like super duper like love it. And then there's also like people who are like, nah, this like isn't for me. And then they join like the club routes. But I feel like also kind of like that line, because I know personally, like as a first year, I thought like you had to be in Greek life in order to like go to the parties or go to like the other things. And like, sometimes that's not people's like deal. And then especially I feel like with SU being like non like affiliated with Greek life, I think that's like so interesting compared to other schools where that is like the campus culture, right? Like it's kind of it's like there.
I can't even imagine,
right? Like being at like a big like state school, and that's like
you have to be in Greek life if you want to do anything like social. I mean, I guess like clubs like will probably like
they have like formals and like
but it is different than like
big,
what people envision when they think of college.
Exactly, because you can definitely go to like bigger state schools and like you're driving down and what like frat row is, like all the houses with like Greek letters, but like I feel like a lot of times too you wouldn't know, like you can drive down the street, and unless it's like when it's like welcome weekend or something, like
and like everyone's out,
you wouldn't know, like exactly, like you wouldn't know if like this house belongs to like a Greek organization, so I feel like I don't know, I think it's just like interesting how like people, like a lot of times like students will try to cultivate that sense of belonging for other students, and then again it was like COVID, so like what was really like going on that much, but I think like even like now being like in a post-COVID world, how a lot of times it's like students recognizing there's a need in the community. There's like a subset of people who like don't have like a community, or they themselves like are like, hey, I'm interested in this. I know other people who are interested in this, but there's not like a formalized community, and then go out like their way to like create clubs, to create like different organizations. And I mean like that makes sense why like Santa Clara has like 170 like student organizations of just like constantly people trying to find that community and sense of belonging. I think it's really cool.
It is really cool. Like I think it's like so, I don't know, it like messes me up because I've met so many amazing people here who have like really been able to like by the end of their college experience like find, including myself, honestly, like as much as it's been difficult, like find like a sense of belonging in some sort of way or another, like very scattered, at least for me. Like I have different places where I like have little bits and groups of people where I feel like I belong. It's not like there's just like one place where I call home and like that's like all it is. I honestly don't think, I don't know. I feel like that like I feel like if I only had one thing that would make me feel lost when I leave, like it wouldn't be like fully me if it was just one thing. And I feel like a lot of people I know who are leaving college now with either nothing or one thing, and they're just like, what did I just do for my past 4 years? And like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the people I worry about, like, in a sense, and like
Yeah.
I see like all these people making clubs, and I know they see it too.
Yeah.
But for some reason, there's like a part of them that they want that, but they don't know like how
No.
to get there or put themselves out there.
Yeah.
Which like brings, I think, us back to just like that self like
Yeah.
element. Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like, I mean, in a way, yeah, it's someone's responsibility to like, grow themselves, be
Yeah.
like self-aware and try to put themselves out there. But like when you're this young and you're like thrown out to California on your own, like
Yeah.
it's not that easy to just like go like try something. Like
Exactly.
it's scary. It's
Yeah.
terrifying. Like,
Yeah.
and I wish like anytime someone comes to Santa Clara and they're like, oh, like, what do you recommend? Like, I'm like, everything. Like,
Yeah.
go do everything.
Yeah.
Like, try everything. Like,
Exactly.
you never know. Like,
Exactly.
you could go to like the bowling club. I don't even know if we have a bowling club. And like literally find that's your passion for life and find the
Yeah.
people that you love, even if they're completely different from you. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. Mm.
Yeah. And I think too, with that like do everything kind of mindset, I think like now more than ever, like imagine just people in like 2019, like, oh, I'll try this like next year. And then it was a
Mhm.
pandemic. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I feel like it's very beneficial
Yeah.
to like front load things, but
Yeah.
like maybe I'll do this, maybe like you never like know what the next day will like
Mhm.
hold. So like honestly, like just like do it. Like not to
And
sound like
then-
Nike, but like
No, just do it.
Like
Like-
honestly, like because you never just like know like where you can find that like community. And that's why I'm excited like too in the future when we like bring on like guests and like do
Mhm.
different things to like find out like where people's communities like lie. Because I feel
Or
like,
if they
if they even
yeah.
lie, like have they even like found like
Yeah.
community in their time being at SU? Because I think especially like I'm a student ambassador, so when you're giving the admissions tours and you're giving like you're on student panels, I feel like one common theme a lot of times when parents ask the question, hey, like why did you choose Santa Clara?
Mhm.
And a common thread a lot of times between like us ambassadors, like the community, like people, either the
Mhm.
ambassadors we like shadowed, like in terms of like who were like on our tours, who were on our panels, or just
Mhm.
people walking around and seeing like
Mhm.
campus life buzzing, it seems like a community. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's like an interesting word to like use. And of course, like if you give back, oftentimes you
Mhm.
serve on like an exec board or you serve like in a like leadership position, like ambassadors or something like that. A lot of times you do have those positive experiences.
Mhm.
So I'm excited to like dive deep in with people
Mhm.
who may not be in kind of like that front facing realm and not
Mhm.
be as like one would say like the face of the school, like you're the one
Yeah.
who's like representing,
Yeah.
and then find out like what was like the good, bad, and ugly of
Yeah.
like your experience, and like
Yeah.
how can we like cultivate like a sense of belonging. And I feel
Yeah.
like
What do you wish?
what do you wish
like-
for that to be, and like
Mhm.
what even is like a
Mhm.
sense of belonging? Is it something like within yourself? Is it something
Yeah.
like within like the communities you find? Is it something like with friends? Like how do each guest like define like a sense of belonging, and like how do they feel like that translate like now, especially like that post grad life
Mhm.
too? Like I don't know if like you're feeling especially like graduating, but it's like so like
Ugh.
easy. I think it
That could
comes
be a whole nother
no,
podcast
honestly.
episode. I'm thinking about it a lot
like every
recently.
day, like, and especially when you have like college seems so easy to make friends, like everyone's kind of, and I think that's also like a misconception, like when you're in those groups, kind of like you're talking about, you join a new club and you're like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
everyone already knows each other, and like cliques form, you have different like friendships like budding, but like post grad life, like how do you again develop that sense of belonging, like when you're in like the
Mhm.
corporate world, like how does that become like a thing, like how do you find friends, like once you leave
Yeah.
college and leave these like formative years, like what's next kind of thing.
Yeah, and then also just like what affects like your ability to do that. I think
Yeah.
I'm so interested in, we're gonna be like talking to a sociologist who studies like the impact of COVID on
Yeah.
like one's sense of belonging and like social media, which I think is
Yeah.
gonna be something,
Super cool.
it's something I think about all the time. I think
Yeah.
that's gonna be super cool. And then also talking to like community facilitators who
Yeah.
like their job is to be there
Yeah.
for people who maybe don't feel like they belong or
Yeah.
do and just like need like some advice, but
Exactly.
it's gonna be a fun ride.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun, and I think it also kind of helps to see like who is like and what is SCU, you know, like
Yeah.
who, because I feel like everyone's always like a couple of degrees away from
It's
each other.
crazy. It's like there's a whole
absolutely
nother world
wild.
every like
Everywhere.
what corner you turn, but everything is connected.
Yeah, because I think too, which is like interesting, like no matter how like well connected you think you are, you're like involved in things. I think about like the big like graduation like ceremonies when there's probably like 1,500 people. And you're like, oh my gosh, like
I
I've
have
never
no
seen
idea
this
who you
person in my
are.
life.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm excited to like dive deep and like learn
Yeah.
about people. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've never seen you before. Like, what are
Yeah.
things like you're involved in? Because I think
Yeah.
like even then, like, you know, you stay in like their little bubbles and their little pockets when you do find like your community, but like what's out there, like once
Yeah.
you leave that bubble.
What helped you to
Yeah. And like how do you like if you have found a sense of community, like how has that been? What was the journey? And then like how do you help others find that sense
Yeah.
of community
give
and
back?
then give it back to you? Like, yeah, I had a great experience, so I want to pass it on and make sure other people have a great
Mhm.
experience. Or if you haven't found that sense of belonging, it's like, where do you like go from here? Do you like
Mhm.
encourage people and take the kind of approach like,
Without going through like immense amounts of pain,
exactly like, hey, this was terrible for
like an
me.
easy way.
Exactly, to like
Mhm.
cope and do all that
Yeah.
things. And like, how do you like give back? Do you want like your life or like your experience to be like an example? Like, hey, I didn't have a good time, but like I hope you have a good time doing
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. Or,
Yeah.
like, how do you like also like those negative experiences? I think
Mhm.
is so
They're
important. to
so
hear.
important.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just thinking about this in my head when you asked me about like my reflections.
Yeah.
Especially the past week, I have just been like grappling with the fact that this is my last quarter of school. And like,
Yeah.
I genuinely did not think I was going to care at all
Yeah.
until this week hit me. And I was like, whoa. And I think in this moment, what I realized my college experience in like 3 terms concepts was pain, growth, and then giving back. And I want to eliminate that
Yeah.
pain. Like I
Yeah.
don't want like I'm so happy that I can like stand here and be like, okay, this is what I did. Like
Yeah.
and this is what helped me grow. Like,
Yeah.
but you shouldn't have to like
Yeah.
figure that out just by like being on your own and going through it
Yeah.
alone. Like I want to be able to provide like a way
Yeah.
for people to be like, oh, like I should do this. Like
Yeah.
I should try this. Like and make it easy. Like
Exactly.
make it flawless. Make
Yeah.
it perfect.
Exactly.
Not actually.
Exactly. But like
The
make the
best we
most
can.
out of that like journey and like make the most out of that like experience. But like
Yeah.
you're so like I want to dig a little like deeper into like your experience in terms of like the pain like stuff. Like how do you
Yeah.
feel like you were able to like grow and like what was that time looking like for you? Like especially like you moved out here like across like the country, like
Yeah.
got an apartment with people like you didn't know, like built those friendships and then like went through a point sophomore year where it's like, okay, like these aren't gonna like be my peeps anymore. And then this like you kind of talked about you had like those 200 people. Like how did you like grow from that? Like what do you feel like was like your journey? Like how did you was it just on a limb of like, okay, like I hear they have this kind of club, I hear they have this thing, let me just like try it out. Like what was your kind of like journey of like the ebbs and flows of that?
So I like to in short terms, I think the pain, like the most of it was realizing I didn't know who I was and having to like sit down with myself, like look myself in the mirror and like be like, you need to like start focusing on you.
Yeah.
Like you need to like figure out like who you are, what you want, like surround yourself with people that you want in your life, like and not just like kind of flock to like the nearest like
Yeah.
group of people. And like even if that means being completely alone, like for
Yeah.
a long time, like this is your time to do it.
Yeah.
Like, but basically actually so interesting. When all of that happened, I had joined club tennis. Not for myself because I wanted to make my mom happy. I tried out for the club tennis team at the beginning of my sophomore year once campus opened, and I basically never went to a single practice. And I remember the week that like all of this stuff happened where my life kind of just like got swiped out from underneath me. My mom flew out and she was like, I was like crying the whole day. And she's like, you're going to go to tennis. And I was like, I am not going to tennis right now. Like, are you crazy? And she's like, I'm putting you in the car and we're going to tennis. And ever since that week, I don't think I've ever missed a practice, maybe like once or twice. So I showed up there like just so alone, like in that moment, like literally the most alone I'd ever felt in my entire life, and confused and like empty and like, what am I gonna do with myself? Like I'm basically 2 years in to college and like I'm done. And these people just like, they didn't even care who I was. They were just like, come here, like come play. Like and that was kind of like honestly probably like the one stable thing that like I had underneath me as I started to figure out, like that was the one thing I knew about myself, like in that moment, that like I could play tennis, like and I could go to these like meetings and stuff that like allowed me to like spend the rest of the time like painting and like listening to music, like really, like I changed my major, became a philosophy major, dropped out of the business school, like a lot of just like transformations, like where I was alone, but I had like that one steady thing like beneath me where like I knew I could fall back on if I like really needed to, even though I didn't super know the people well. I ended up actually like living with club tennis people for the rest of my college experience. But yeah, it was like that one underlying thing, and then just like being able to have the like opportunity to be alone with my thoughts, to like try everything. Like I think without having that one underlying like piece, like it would have been really hard for me to like fully start over. And I don't give club tennis enough credit.
And now you're on board, right, for club tennis?
Yeah, social chair. Shocker. Want to make people feel like they belong. That's our goal here.
Come on now. Like that's a really cute, like full like circle moment. It's crazy, like you're almost like, you know, like you're gonna go and like look at you now. Like that's like that stable thing. And I feel like I love having like those like moments or people or like places where it's like no matter if so much is like going like crazy and like awry like around you, like having that kind of like stable thing. And that's so amazing that club tennis was that thing for you to be like, hey, if I need to take my mind off of something,
I can
then
just
like
go
this
to
is
that.
where I can go and like escape.
Finding something, my friend said this the other day about club tennis, but I think this applies to like whatever you're doing. Finding something that you never feel worse after you do it.
I like that.
Where you go to it and every time, like without fail, you never feel worse after leaving. Like I think that's so important because like being involved in something, like you don't have to like leave every time like jumping for joy, like being like, this is like what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. Like it's just like something that doesn't make you feel worse. Like like that you don't ever leave like being like, oh God, like I don't want to, because then you don't have to do it. But like just having something that like is a consistent thing for you to do with people who make you feel like you like actually like belong to some extent and don't make you feel like you don't, like that's so important.
No, definitely the community you surround yourself with like makes your experience that much better. Like it's, you can have like a great like college experience, just like you yourself and I, and just like academics. I'll do my like little extracurriculars and go home. But I think like the people you find yourself in community with like really make that experience so much better, and also like so much worthwhile. Because I think when you're not enjoying something, the 4 years feels so long. But when it's like you're enjoying it, then you look back and like, oh my gosh, like it's graduation day. Like where'd all the time go?
I'm honestly so excited, like just sitting here right now, like I like am excited to look back on my college experience when I'm older. Because I've gotten to the point where I realize that like it is not like butterflies, fairies, and rainbows. And like the fact that I can say I'm leaving with like a few really good friends, a few like organizations and like experiences that I've been a part of that I love, and like that I have changed like immensely since I began, is like honestly all I could ask for.
Yeah.
And all like I am so proud of that in like every sense of the word.
Yeah.
And I feel like I just want people to be able to like at least like understand they don't need like butterflies, fairies, rainbows to like have like this like college experience. Like it whatever your college experience is your own, and like you have to be proud of it. Like you don't need all that.
Exactly. No, that's so real. Like to just look back and be like, yeah, like I like left with all like the good parts and like reminisce about those good parts. Cause I think, yeah, it just goes by like so fast. And like, I don't know, it's actually like insane. And it's like even being like a junior and like thinking about, okay, like next year is like senior year. Like I'm always someone who's more like a little bit of like a realistic, like, oh my gosh, like there's gonna be like literally like one full like year left. But I think it's like, wow, like thinking like, oh my gosh, like how much did I accomplish that I really want to accomplish, and even like doing things that like I never like thought I would like do or like enjoy. Kind of like you mentioned about like, oh, you like music, like join KSU. And that's something I did last quarter and then doing again this quarter. It was like something that was so like on a whim. I'm like, oh, like why not? Like I like music, like
like to talk.
I like to talk, and then it ended up being like one of my favorite things. And like even like well, this now spring quarter, I'm like my shows are like 8 a.m. and I'm so excited. Like I can't wake up for an 8 a.m. class, try to avoid them like at all costs. But like this thing that brings me like so much joy, like take away like any stress of like the week or just like play some things and just be in my like own head and have like this space like for myself for an hour is like so healing. And I think it's just so many things you just
do things that make you feel at peace and try it. Like you don't know what's gonna bring yourself joy. Like you gotta just do it all.
Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know. Like you don't try anything or you don't like, you know, go out and like experience, you don't know like what like you're missing. And it's like really like up to you to, you know, make that like experience and go out and like, I don't know, just go out and be the best version of you and like find the best version of you too. And I feel like a lot of people sometimes like, oh my gosh, like high school is such like a formative time for people, which I think is like true to an extent, but college so much more formative. Like the things you experience,
because your brain, like the like where your brain is at,
like you're just learning so many different things. People are coming from like all over the world to like one place to study. And it's like you're introduced to so many different like thoughts, ideas, beliefs, like people. And I think that's like so beautiful. You can like learn so much. And then like you really like learn like who you are and who you want to go out and like be in this world, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah. Period.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like this is an amazing first little podcast moment.
Good.
You guys can tell that we love to talk. And we're so very excited to learn more about each other.
Yeah.
Give you guys, I don't know,
just
like
a little glimpse into SCU. Hopefully, you know, I feel like part of it it's like going in with like curiosity because I feel like we didn't necessarily like set a pure like intention, like the goal that we wanted to achieve is X, Y, and Z. Like we have to ask these questions, but just like letting things flow and kind of seeing like I feel like that's like our like intention is just to be curious and just to like let conversations like flow. Because I even feel like for this we're like let's just like flow. Like it's not gonna be like okay, question 1, question 2, but just to kind of see like where our mind is at. And I feel like it's in those like moments where it's very much like word vomit. Like you can really find those gems. And I think like figuring out like, oh my gosh, you went through this similarly. I went through this, or oh my gosh, you went through that. I never experienced that. Like tell me like a little more about it. And I think like that's like the beauty of like everything that like we want to like find out. And I think like supplementing like, you know, we can hear from like our friends or like other people like this has been my college experience, but then also like not only being able to hear from students and like hear their like living breathing experience, but also backing up with people who have like PhDs who've done research who are like working in the field and their experiences from like when they were in school and then like how like their
studies have like
impacted them. So it's gonna be like so wild to just see all of that all together.
This is like my dream coming true
Yeah.
right now. I'm so
It's gonna
excited.
be a good time. I think it's gonna be just so fun to just talk and like be curious and learn from people.
Hopefully help some people out.
Yeah, because that's
I
like
think that's the
the
goal.
goal too.
I
Like,
guess.
you know, for
If that is
anyone,
that, maybe
that
the
is our
goal.
goal, you know, for
Just
anyone
to
who's like listening and watching to like find
help
some
you
gems.
figure out a way to feel like you belong.
Yeah.
You want everyone to have that. Everyone deserves that.
Yeah, to have that sense of belonging. And,
Everyone's a big word. But,
yeah.
You know
But
what?
you know,
I'm
everyone.
I'm biting that bullet.
No, exactly. Everyone matters.
Yeah.
Whoever's watching, you matter.
You
So
matter.
listening to you matter. So I
Mhm.
think that's like the big I would say you're so right about that. Like our big overarching goal is just to like help people find their spaces, find their sense of belonging, and know that they matter.
And hopefully we can do a little bit of that.
Yeah, a little ounce. But thank y'all so much for watching, listening. We can't wait to bring you so many more episodes over this next quarter.
We'll be releasing them, fingers crossed, every Sunday.
Yeah.
For the whole quarter.
So
every week.
very exciting.
It's gonna be very exciting.
Yeah.
We wish we had the whole year, but alas.
Here we are.
Here we are. Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.